Hi, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar, Put an End to Your Sales Tax Woes Now with Sage Sales Tax by Avalara. We appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to join us. There are a couple of housekeeping items we'd like to mention before we begin the presentation. All attendees are in listen-only mode. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, please either raise your hand so that we can unmute your line or submit them through the GoToWebinar question box. We will be answering questions throughout the presentation, and we'll be following up afterwards to answer any additional questions. I'd like to introduce today's speaker. From Avalara, we have industry expert Nicole Crowley, Regional Sales Manager. Nicole, graduate of Michigan State University, has been in the sales tax software space for over 11 years and with Avalara for over 5. While working with many different ERPs, she has focused most of her time on Sage and Microsoft Dynamics. She has helped thousands of customers automate their sales tax process over the years and always strives to make sure they have the best solution possible. And now, Nicole, we're ready to transition the presentation over to you.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you, associates, for hosting us. We appreciate it. You're a great partner. And thank you, everyone, for attending today, making time for our webinar. We are going to be covering automating sales tax compliance in Sage. Let's go ahead and get started. So what we'll cover today, we're going to go over the traits of a successful business. We're going to talk about challenges of manual tax compliance and how technology can help. Okay? So the good news is that the recession is over. Companies that were struggling in the past are now growing at lightning speed. So what does that actually mean? It means businesses have a lot of opportunity. And so today I'm going to talk to you about how we can maximize your ERP and automate compliance. So some traits of a successful business. So you've invested in your ERP to do a few key things for your business. Reduce overhead, scale operations, automate business processes, and create visibility across your core business functions. So the good thing to adopt with that, you have your business solution that supports you now and down the road. But what if you go global? What if you expand into new states, launch an online store? All of these are common business activities that come with pretty complicated tax challenges. And so that's something that you want to think about and be prepared for. So the truth about sales tax, unfortunately, it's a statutory requirement. It's not going away, and actually it's probably getting worse because that is the #1 revenue generating activity for all states. So states really want you to collect tax for them. Unfortunately, it's not a revenue generating activity for your business. It's just time consuming. And since you're doing so much of it, it's error prone. Because you look at numbers over and over and all of a sudden you can make mistakes. And that creates risk for your business and risk that you don't want to get yourself into. So now we're going to look at the challenges of tax compliance. The zip codes. So a lot of folks think zip codes, that's how we manage sales tax, right? We can look at the zip code and apply a tax rate, but it's really the wrong tool for the job. The reason being is taxing jurisdictions don't always follow a zip code. Zip codes are truly for the Postal Service. Individual counties and municipalities, they levy sales tax in addition to state rates. The tax rates can significantly change within a zip code. And maybe some of you know that for examples. You might have a zip code that crosses multiple counties. And so that's where in some of the real tricky states, you could cross the street and have a different tax rate. And that's where that zip code isn't accurate enough. Unfortunately, zip codes are just, again, a blunt instrument for determining sales tax rates and boundaries. They will almost certainly lead to mistakes, and they can lull you into a false sense of security. We don't want that. So just to elaborate a little more on this, I picked a zip code. It's in Colorado. We're going to expand out here. It's 80111. And so, if I bet even folks that live in Colorado might not know this, but let's go ahead and zoom in here. We'll just pick a little circle point, zoom in. We've got all these different zip codes, right? And there's our 80111. Zoom in a little more. Well, within this, there's 7 different tax rates within this little circle. Okay, so there's a state, a couple cities, a couple counties, and a couple local. That's just more than most people would ever imagine. I mean, most people would think you have a city, a state, a county, and maybe some locals, but never multiple cities, multiple counties. So but applying it just to the zip code would never be accurate enough. You never figure out all of this information. Okay. Here are the actual rates and what they're applied to, like I was saying. We have our multiple counties and cities, and 3 cities to be specific. And again, it's just too inaccurate and too risky. Okay. All right, so now we're on to rate rules and boundary changes. So as some of you know, there's thousands of changes every year. So sales tax rates aren't stagnant. They don't stay the way they are, unfortunately. There can be tax changes every month. So it's not even just on the rate. Take a step further, it could be a rate on what it is you're selling. You know, there's rates, there's different rules that come into the mix. So everything changes. There's thousands of taxability rules, tens of thousands of tax jurisdictions. You have your exempt products, exempt organizations, tax holidays now, sourcing, where it comes from and where it's going to, nexus rules that are expanding, and many more. So this is just why it's such a pain, right? Okay, so product taxability. So what is taxable in one state may not be in another. Similar products might be taxed differently. Different industries having variable taxability rules. So basically, you're constantly having to check with each jurisdiction for unique product taxability laws because they're not constant. Similar products may be taxed differently. Different industries have different rules, and so, for example, like clothing industry, clothing is taxed one way versus a service or software or food. And then tangible goods are usually the easy one. Even shipping has its own rules depending on where it's going and what that state has came up with as far as tax laws. And this is why it's so hard. You know, there's thousands of different tax rules based on what you're selling. And here's just a fun little slide on that to elaborate a little more. You have these 2 Milky Way candy bars, and you would think, oh, well, they're probably both not taxable. Wrong. One is taxable, the one without wheat in it. I mean, who would ever think that, right? But that's how the tax law works, except for in Washington, of course. Oh, I'm sorry, it was flour, not wheat. Except in Washington, candy and gum are exempt from retail sales tax. So, I mean, these are the crazy rules that you have to know depending on what it is you're selling and where you're selling to. And that becomes quite hectic to manage that and keep out of an audit. Okay, so I'm going to just check in with everybody. I want to see if there are any questions so far. If there are, please feel free to raise your hand or write in the little chat message your question. I'd like to address it. Like I said, if there's any questions so far. If not, we'll continue on, but I'll just pause for a second.
Doesn't look like we have any questions at the moment.
Okay, all right, very good. Well, that's easy. All right, so we'll continue on with sourcing rules. So not only do we have to figure out what we're selling, we have to figure out the rules of when we sell it, how it should be taxed. So origin-based states, the sale is considered to take place at the location where the sale is completed. Okay, so you're going to tax at the location of where you sell it. Now, with the states that are destination, those are the majority of the states, thank goodness, and that sale is thought to take place in the jurisdiction where the product is used. So, you know, if you're selling to, I don't know, Ohio, you know, or maybe you're selling to Indiana, you're going to charge Indiana tax even if you're in Michigan or whatever. And so you have to look at each state and find out what rule they apply to. So, you know, here are the states for the origin. It's Arizona, Illinois, Missouri, New Mexico, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Utah, and Virginia. So those are origins. So those states, if you are selling there, it's going to be based on where it was at versus where it's going to. Okay. And then, of course, there's California and Texas, 2 of the nightmare states for everyone to deal with, and they're a mix. So it kind of depends on all their rules and what you're doing and what you're selling and all of that stuff to make it even more confusing. Okay, so continuing on, now we take another step, nexus. So it used to be just brick and mortar stores. You have, you know, a building or an office in a state. Well, that creates nexus, physical presence. Unfortunately, that's not how it is anymore. There's so many more rules because, again, those states really want the money that they would get from sales tax, because that's the #1 revenue generating activity for each state. So now it's more along the lines of, do you have traveling salespeople? Do you have or utilize contract labor in a state? Do you have company reps in a state? Do you promote your product or services in the state? Do you own or lease property in a state? Do you participate in trade shows? Nevada, if you go to 2 trade shows a year, they deem that as you now have nexus in their state and you're going to collect tax for them. So if you go to Vegas twice a year for trade shows, you're going to be filing and collecting tax for them. And the list goes on. You know, it's ever growing because, again, they want that money. So that's something you really want to stay up on. And I know it's confusing sometimes, so that's where you can always bring in a professional. We actually have a group that handles that, and you can reach out to associates if you ever need help with that. Okay. All right, so exempt products. So don't assume that they're all the same. That's the main thing. You will be required to pay tax, penalties, and interest on any sale where you do not have a valid certificate. I can't stress this enough. Make sure you have your certificate. If a customer is exempt, or even if you don't know, ask the question and get their certificate. You don't want to be without it because then you're liable. If a customer, if you have a certificate, it's a good process to get into to get new ones every year, every couple of years. In states such as Florida, they expire every year. Not all states do expire, but a lot of, a handful of them do. And the thing you want to remember is that even if you have that certificate on file, if that customer, merges or makes an acquisition and now their name changed even the slightest little bit, or they move to a new location, now that address isn't valid. So that certificate is not valid anymore. You want to make sure that you're keeping up on that. So if you get audited, you have proof of why you're not collecting tax or charging tax to those customers. Okay. Basically, the key is everything is taxable until proven otherwise. That's how you want to think about it. So you want to make sure you have all your proof to show why you didn't collect tax. Okay. European tax compliance. The 3 traditional ways business handle tax compliance is you enter sales tax rates and think that's sufficient and not realizing changes take place constantly. You constantly research and update rates manually, which is a huge drain on time and resources. Or 3, you pick an average rate and apply it across all transactions. So all of them are not ideal. We don't want you to go down any of these routes because that is not the best for compliance. We want to make sure that you have everything correct so that if you get audited, you don't have a bill. You don't have to pay. So we want to make sure that you steer clear from this. And if you're doing one of these, it's okay. We can help you to not do that anymore. Okay? All right. So just a slide on the cost of compliance. So this is just a slide about how many hours per person each month the average organization spends on the following activities. And so you see we have a small and a mid-sized business. And we cover anything from administration of taxability changes to tax return prep and filing, responding to auditors, managing certs, to researching product taxability in states, researching nexus, and managing use tax requirements. So quite a lot of hours spent. And again, you're not getting revenue for this. You're just hoping you don't get an audit and a fine. So the average cost, now that we've had the hours, we apply the cost, it's around 60, just over 60,000 really on both of them. And so again, it's a lot of money, much more than the cost of automating compliance. Okay. So let's cover a day in the life of the compliance manager. Is it getting overwhelming yet? So all these jobs, and how can one person do this, or even a team, depending on how many you have on your staff. So overwhelmed, yes, or yet, absolutely. Too much work for one person and too much stress. So let's see how Avalara can help. So how does it work? So instead of researching rates, building tax tables, and implementing tax processes, you'll install the connector that links with Sage and it'll communicate through a web service. Because our solution is a cloud solution, Avalara will always keep everything up to date, so it's rules, rates, taxability, boundaries, all of that. And then you'll just enter orders, quotes, invoices, if you have to do returns, whatever functionality you do today in Sage, you'll just keep doing it. And when it needs tax, it'll go ahead and talk to Avatax and return it right back into Sage in about 0.2 of a second. You'll never even know that it went outside to the cloud to get it. So it's a very seamless process. So Avalara Compliance Platform. So we have the three main solutions. So Sage Sales Tax, which is Avatax, that is to calculate. So that's the main solution to do all of your calculation. We have a certificate management solution as well. So if you're managing a bunch of exemption certificates, we can manage that for you. And what's nice is that Sage Sales Tax works in addition to the certificate solution. They work seamless together. So that way, if you do have exempt sales or exempt customers, when you go to do a quote or an order, and Sage Sales Tax goes to calculate tax for you, it'll talk to Cert Capture, which is our cert solution. It'll say, hey, Cert Capture, does this customer in this jurisdiction have a valid certificate on file? And if it says yes, it'll let it know, and they'll send back 0 tax, or it'll exempt the tax that is necessary. Okay. That way, it takes out human decision. You don't have to look for it. You don't have to figure it out. The solution has it. It's stored in one place. It's an accurate certificate, and it knows if it's valid. Okay. And then the final component is the filing of the returns. So you've collected the tax. Now we have to give it back. So we will prepare the tax returns. You'll be able to log into your account, review them, see everything that's there. Then you'll transfer us funds. We'll go ahead and file and pay on your behalf. So you don't have to do anything. You let us take care of it. Okay. And so you'll see a couple other names down here. We've got the 1099 solution. We've got Matrix Master for like grocery type stores. We have the professional services team as well, and I sort of touched on that earlier. So if you need help determining nexus, or if you need help getting registered in new states, or you need audit defense, or maybe you've started collecting tax and you didn't know what to do with it and you're not registered, we can help with that as well. It's called a voluntary disclosure agreement, and we do those for customers all the time. We have a team of ex-auditors, CPAs, and tax attorneys that handle all of that stuff for you if you need it. Okay? So that's something you can just reach out to associates on, and they'll involve us, and then we can help you. All right. I'll just pause one more time here, see if there are any questions so far. If we'll carry on, just give everyone a second.
Nothing at the moment.
Okay, sounds good. Well, very easy crowd. All right, so expanding a little further on the end-to-end sales tax compliance. So Avatax, or Sage Sales Tax, is again the calculation solution. It's going to validate all the addresses. It uses satellite data, so it can pinpoint the exact jurisdiction. So like in those scenarios like Colorado, it's going to look at the address and it's going to pinpoint it just like your GPS would in your car. And then it's going to determine the tax based on that jurisdiction. Okay, so it's super important to use the whole address, and it's super important to validate the address to make sure it's correct. A nice benefit to that is that if you haven't audited your addresses in a long time, you can do that in a batch. So you can use a service to clean up your addresses internally as well. You don't have to do that, but that is a nice benefit that a lot of customers take advantage of. So after it's validated the address, it's going to look at sourcing rules. Is it origin-based, destination-based? Is it mixed? What are the rules for where it's going? It's going to make that jurisdiction assignment. It's going to look at each line independently on the order to determine the taxability of each item. So is it a service? Is it software? Is it tangible? What's the shipping and shipping tax in this location? And then it'll calculate the tax, and then it'll provide you unlimited reporting as granular as you want. So right down to the line item level. So you're going to have the tax information in Sage as well. But again, if you want extra granular tax reports, you can go right into your account, your Avatax account, and have access to unlimited reports that are real time. Okay. So cert capture, again, that's our exemption certificate solution. You're going to be able to do certificate requests. So, if you don't have any certificates and you need to have certificates, you can send out a request to everybody at once. And what's nice with that is that they can simply click a link that you send them, and it allows them to enter their information into the system. The system picks the correct certificate that they should be providing you based on the way they answer some questions. They can sign it with their mouse, so they don't even have to print it, so it makes it super easy. And then when they send it, it goes right back to the solution, and the solution tracks it. So then you can log in and review, make sure they didn't write their name with Mickey Mouse or something, and as long as it's correct, then you can just approve it and it becomes active. And that's how it works seamless with Avatax. They talk together to make sure they get you the correct taxing rate and all that good stuff. There's a collection wizard as well. So if you do have a bunch of certificates on file and you want to just scan them, you can upload all of them at once. You don't have to do it one by one. You can scan them all and then just put page breaks in between so you can separate out the certificates. It works as a storage and retrieval system as well. So if you do get audited, an auditor comes in and says, I need to see all of your certificates for Ohio, you can do that in just a couple clicks. Then again, it's integrated with Avatax, so it can help with those tax decisions. And then it has renewal management. So for those states that do expire yearly, you can have the system email you, once a month or whatever you want for when the certificates are going to expire. Okay. And so then that leaves us with Avalara returns. That's really, again, the last component of the circle, I call it. So you calculate, make sure you have your certificates, and then you have to file. So we provide liability worksheets. We do the whole preparation. We do the filing and remittance. You have return archive. We keep all of your returns for a minimum of 7 years. That's the longest requirement, statutory requirement. And we have notice management. So if you get notices, we take care of those as well. And so how that typically works is you finish a month, then you have till the 10th of the next month to make any adjustments. Then we pull the data because it's in the cloud. We have your liability. We pull it. We prepare the tax return. Then you log in. You review it. Then you transfer funds. We file and pay. And it's a very seamless process. If the 10th of the month isn't a long enough time for adjustments, we do have some wiggle room on that, but on average, it's the 10th of the month. Okay. So tax rate calculations. So tax rate calculations are precise rate determination. Again, sourcing rules, there's address validation, product taxability, reporting. Some optional features that we have for state sales tax, also known as Avatax, is consumer's use tax. So if you are having to self-assess use tax and you need help with that, that's something we can do. Also with global tax calculations. So out of the box, state sales tax will come with the U.S. and Canada, and it doesn't matter how many states you're in. Basically, as anywhere in North America, or within U.S. and Canada and all the territories, that's included. If you ever need outside of that, say you need Europe, that's something we can help you with. We have global tax calculations, and we can add that on at any time. Just let us know. Okay. All right, exemption certificate management. So again, just expanding a little further on cert capture, you have the renewal management, you have the collection wizard, you have the storage and retrieval, and the certificate request. And so the request is probably the nicest feature in my opinion. I've worked with customers over the years where they haven't had certificates, but they had told me, we really need to be collecting these, we need to get on this, and I'll ask, well, how many? Like I had one customer, and they said, we should have about 20,000, and they didn't have any. So that was a nightmare, worried me, stressed me out. So I was like, we need to get you on the cert capture right away. And so all they had to do was upload their customer names with their email, and they could send out requests all at once. And so that made their life super easy, and now they're not as worried about an audit. Okay, and so expanding a little more on the filing and returns. Again, like I said, we handle all of the notices. We have record retention for compliance, so 7 years. reduces penalty and interest exposure. So we're handling it. We are experts at that. So and we take liability. So if we are handling your tax returns, the liability is on us. So it really does alleviate a lot of stress and worry for you. It's automated and scalable. So even if you're only doing 50 returns a year or 25, I mean, I have customers that buy 24 returns a year, and then I have customers that buy 3,000 returns a year. If you have multiple entities, we just separate it out, but you'll purchase the number of returns in total. It's a single source of payment, and then we handle all the processing. So just like payroll, basically sales tax works the same way. I mean, using automation to streamline business operations is like the compliance used for payroll. Just like ADP or Paychex, I'm sure a lot of you are using that. It's the same thing. It'll achieve compliance, it'll cut costs, it'll increase efficiencies because you can focus on growth now. You don't have to worry about, did we check the rates? Did we update the rates? Did we research where we're at? Did we move into a new state? How do we get that information? All of that stress and all of those worries go away. So our commitment to you, we strive every day to provide the fastest, easiest, most accurate, and most affordable way to calculate, collect, report, and remit your sales and use tax. All right, that's what I have today. So if there's any questions, I'd love to answer.
Perfect. Thanks, Nicole. Just a couple of additional items we wanted to mention before we start the Q&A. All upcoming events and current promotions can be found on our website at socius1.com. Through June 30th, 2016, Sage ERP clients will receive 10% off the purchase of Sage sales tax. Also, Sage has announced their first quarter promotions that expire on June 30th, 2016. Please take a look at the link provided on your screen, socius1.com/sage-promotions. Sage Summit 2016 will be held in Chicago from July 25th to the 28th. You can register by April 30th, 2016 and use the code SOCIUS for a discounted rate of only $199. We have a great group of clients going this year and we look forward to helping them learn more about how to grow their businesses, so we hope that you'll be able to join us as well. Then to discuss the Sage Summit or how Sage Sales Tax or Avalara can help your business, please contact Lori Ramsey or Diane Graziano if you have any questions. Their contact information is currently shown on your screen. So we do